In the previous lesson, we looked at importing data into Pandas using Jupyter Labs, and we created a notebook in Jupyter Lab to hold our work. This time, let's start from scratch and reopen the notebook that we were using last time. So I uploaded a copy of the notebook as well as the miscellaneous files that you need for the examples to Lesson 4 lecture videos. And I'm going to go ahead and click on the link for import data example files.zip. That gives me a zip file. I downloaded that to my downloads folder by default. So I'm going to right click on this, and I have 7-zip installed for extracting archives, but I'm just going to go ahead and extract to import data example files, which is sort of the standard. And then I get this folder, import data example files. It has my notebook and the example files in it. So this is in my downloads folder right now. So if I want to open the notebook, I want to start Jupyter Lab either in downloads or in import data example files. Or I could move this whole folder somewhere else. But for now, I'll just leave it in download. So to start Jupyter Lab, I start a command shell, and you can do that by going here and typing cmd and then start command prompt. And I don't think we need to run this as administrator for anything this time. My downloads folder is inside of here. And then from this folder, I'm just going to go ahead and start Jupyter Lab. So that's going to be Jupyter Lab, which I don't actually have just installed here. I actually want to run this from Conda. So here's my Anaconda folder, and I want to start an Anaconda prompt for Anaconda 3. So I'll go ahead and start that. It shows me with the base environment. I'm going to cd downloads. And then here I'm going to type Jupyter Lab. Okay, so that starts up the Jupyter Lab server and opens the empty workspace in my browser. And it actually remembered the settings from before. So it started with the previous thing open, which is in lab tree import and so on. But I want to open the one in my downloads folder. So I'm actually in my downloads folder already, and at the top there's this import data folder. Import data example files, and then here's my notebook. And that's actually the one that I had open already. Now, when you open it, it looks like it's been run, and there are numbers in the cells, but it hasn't really. So for example, if I go to the end here, see the last thing I did was displayed a data frame. And if I go ahead and hit a plus sign, and then just try to redisplay that data frame, Alt plus Enter, it actually shows an error, name df is not defined. So when I ran this before, when I had this notebook open before, and I executed all of the cells in a particular order, at that point df was defined, and so it displayed the results. But when I opened the notebook into an empty kernel, none of that stuff has actually been executed. So it's static in the notebook, it's displaying what was in there before, but that doesn't actually match what's in the kernel right now. So what I want to do is actually re-execute some of these cells, and I can, for example, click on the first one and hit Control Enter to execute that cell, and it gets a 2. And then I can open a database connection, and that's a 3. And then I can read a query and display the data frame, and that works. So now the df in the kernel is actually this data frame which is the popularity of the name Mark. And if I skipped all the way to the end here and looked at the value of data frame, it shows me the current value of data frame, which is the popularity of the name Mark. So that's different than this data frame here, which is actually something that I constructed by making an array, a couple of arrays, and creating a data frame directly from it. So if I go ahead and execute this one here, I get an error name index is not defined. So I need to go up one. So I can execute this one. And now I can execute this one. And now I have a data frame. And then I can execute this one. And now if I look at data frame again, instead of the popularity of Mark, I'm going to get this thing that I set up by hand. So the order that these cells get executed is important because every time you execute a cell, it's going to update the state of variables in the kernel. And whenever you execute a cell, it's going to be looking at the variables in the kernel to execute the cell. So usually what you want to do is you want to start at the top and you want to run all of the cells in order. So under this run menu, you can select this run all cells, and that will actually start at the top and go through each cell one at a time. And execute them in the order that they're written. So sometimes that's what you want, and sometimes you want to execute these one at a time in a particular order. And we're going to be reworking through this notebook in the following videos, looking at the actual data that we have in these data frames and coming up with a plan for what we want to display.